to run the primary. Here you go. And I went, what? I didn't know anything about conducting an election, but I learned quick. I read the rules, became pretty familiar with the Texas election code, understood the Republican Party process, and gosh, it seems like 2 years ago, suddenly we had a lot of people who wanted to get involved. I'd been begging people for 20 years to get involved, and a lady working on the Ron Paul presidential campaign said to me, Deborah, I'm in North Texas, and there are a lot of people that want to learn about how to be engaged in politics. Could you go and teach and talk? And I said, you bet. I've been begging for an audience. I haven't changed my message. I just was happy to have people that I could share with, you know. And so I began to travel from Beaumont to Bryan College Station to San Antonio to Corpus Christi. And I bet I was on the road 3 or 4 nights a week, every week, for about 10 months to groups like this, talking to you about conservative ideas, the Constitution, Republican Party rules, the Texas election code. How do you find a candidate that you like and get them elected so that we get back to that limited government? And so a year ago, this month, I was at one of a political event, preparing for a political event in Houston. I had gone in at the invitation of some folks that were putting a rally together to help them with that organizational effort. And a man at that event said to me, Deborah, why don't you run for governor? I'm going to tell you, in my house, I have 2 children. Noe and I have 2 children. Our daughter, Janice, is 24 and Jacob is 20. We've had a lot of political discussions in my home. We homeschool those kids, so we were their teachers and we taught them politics. And Mama running for governor was not anything that we ever discussed in our house. It never came up. So when that man said to me, why don't you run for governor, I knew about that quick that I didn't like the choices Texas Republicans were going to have in March of 2010. I knew that instantly. Amen. It took me a while, about 4 months, to decide I would be one of those choices. I would give us another choice. It took some convincing because Noe and I've had to work hard our whole life to provide to the level that we wanted to provide for our family. And I knew that all these people that I had been speaking with all over Texas were in the same boat that I was. I knew that they were having to work hard to provide for their families. And I wanted to be convinced, not that we had a guaranteed win, but that we had a real shot at winning this race before I was willing to travel all over Texas and ask you to give of your time, your talent, and your resources to a campaign unless I was convinced that we could win, that it was a fight that we needed to engage. And it took about 4 months for me to get there. And in February of this year, I appointed a treasurer and announced my candidacy for governor. There were immediately 3 full-time jobs on my plate. One was, in the state of Texas, political candidates cannot benefit from their campaign. I have mortgages to pay and kids to put through college and bills. And so I need to continue to work and run my business. The second thing was, running a governor's race is a full-time job. Texas is a big state. I am speaking, again, 3, 4, 5 nights a week. Let's see, I started this morning. My first interview, I guess, was at 7 o'clock at home, and then I was in my office for about an hour, and then I was in my car for several, and I've done 1 radio interview, 1 television interview, and a couple of other meetings today, and now I'm here for this, and that's pretty much my day. When I'm done here tonight, I'll go back to my hotel and log on to the server at my office, and I'll do a little medical billing work before I go to bed tonight, and that's pretty much what I'm going to do from now until March. So I had a full-time job to campaign. But probably the most important job that I have is to prepare to be the governor of the great state of Texas. I wasn't willing to wait until November of 2010 to say, oh my, we won, now we've got 6 weeks to get ready to govern. See, you don't have to look very far to know that Texas is big. In fact, if you do a little bit of study, you'll see that this state by itself has the 13th largest economy in the world. We we've got lots of work that needs to be done in Texas. And so I began to study. I shared with you that I had been asked by the woman running Ron's presidential campaign. I didn't point out I live in the middle of that congressional district. I've been there 20 years. I've grown up almost politically under the tutelage of a man, regardless of what you may think about his presidential aspirations. You must admit that his calling our economy has been pretty dead on. He understands. And he's taught. I'm a nurse. I also happen to have a business degree, so I've had a few economics classes in my life, and I've lived for 20 years under this man that's talked about Austrian economics and Keynesian economics. You know, those Keynesians believe that we've got a central bank, it expands and contracts the supply of money, and it alters the interest rate, and if it does that just right, the economy will be stable, unemployment will be low, and we will all be prosperous. And you'll remember last year about this time, right? The Secretary of the Treasury goes to Congress because people are nervous, and he says, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. I promise you everything's fine. And 2 weeks later, he's back saying what? We got to have $700 billion right now. And if we don't get it, we're doomed. We got to have it. You also all know that one of the candidates for governor voted for that bailout, right? Everybody knows that now because she's been known. Okay, bailout. But what you may not know,
she said it.
What you may not know is that your governor, as chairman of the Republican Governors Association, sent a letter to the Congress and said, please pass that bailout. We got to have it. Check it out. There's a Reuters news story about that. See, he's the pot calling the kettle black. He wanted that same handout. There is no difference in economic perspective between Kay Perry and Rick Hutchison. There's no difference. See, they don't understand. The Austrian school says the market is the best determinant of businesses that should succeed and those that should fail. Government cannot predict that. So that's the mindset that I come to the governor's race with. I see a Federal Reserve Bank that has doubled the monetary supply. It hasn't hit the economy yet, but when and if it does, we are likely to see hyperinflation, not unlike what happened in Germany.
That's right.
Okay, we know that that may be coming. Pray it doesn't. But as a nurse, I had to say, you know, that patient might stop